welcome everyone. Today's Saturday afternoon. We've got Jim and Dave on. You two are on.
We're here.
And we have special guests, Bix Weir and Clif on. You two are on.
Yes.
Hey, guys.
Great. Okay, so we're going to talk about cryptos and versus gold. I guess to get started, I want to make sure all of us agree that we believe a financial crash is coming. Everybody agree?
I agree to that. I can't tell you when.
Okay. And also, we all agree that we're living in a credit-induced bubble.
My credit cards would prove that.
Everybody,
yes, I agree.
We all agree on that?
Sorry, guys, I sinned. I have to confess I sinned.
All right, so what we're going to do is we've been told, we just don't understand Bitcoin. And
correct.
Let's turn this over. I don't know which Bix or Cliff want to go first or second or whatever, but
I'd be happy to go first if Cliff.
Fire away.
You don't mind?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, the way, maybe a story about how I got here. I cut my teeth listening to Jim talk about gold and the importance of gold in a monetary system and the importance of silver. And I spent a good 8 years absolutely defending gold, defending silver as money, fighting the banksters as best I could with data, putting all my energies into that, literally, sacrificing a lot to do it. So it was a very difficult thing for me to get my head around this brand new thing called a cryptocurrency called Bitcoin. And I was told about it. In the first year I heard about it, I absolutely fought that with all my might, just like I fought against the banks and their unbacked fiat games and all that. To me, it was just another game that they were playing. Unfortunately, I didn't buy into Bitcoin when it was, $1 or $2. It came a little bit later, but not too much later. And what I came to understand is that Bitcoin did not represent anybody's debt, just like gold and silver don't represent anybody's debt. And that was a big change from all the other fiat things I had looked at and all the electronic assets I had looked at. There was always a promise to fulfill on the other side. And when Bitcoin came around and I read the white paper, and it said it's a decentralized peer-to-peer payment system. And it was powered and managed and monitored by all the users of the system, and no central banks were in the middle of it. There was no middleman, no J.P. Morgan, no Steve Mnuchin. Nobody was in the middle of it, and it was humanity breaking free from the system of debt and the system of control that they have over us today. And it was very similar when I ultimately understood that it was extremely similar to what gold had represented to me all these years. That's when I took more interest in it, and I really dug in deep to find out, is this really secure? Is it trustworthy? Is there anything that could be hacked or cracked? Or what is the problem? Where are the problems with this system? Because it seems a little too good to be true if it is something that could take down our current banking system, or even be growing up right next to it and have the ability to move over. As the old system crashes, the ability to move over to a new system, because the gold and silver solution was going to be very difficult. Reallocating gold and silver to humanity, who owns all the gold and silver? It's mainly the banksters and those people who we had trusted with our monetary system in the past. And once the current system crashes, I had this feeling in my gut that people aren't going to trust anybody anymore, but there was nowhere else to go. And that's when the cryptos came in. That's when I started listening to Clif, who described it very well to me so I can understand that it was humanity breaking free from the bankers and giving us another option besides the gold and silver option. That's my short introduction. Cliff, what do you think about that?
I think it's extremely accurate. It's one of many different ways to look at the cryptocurrencies, because we can look at them as digital currencies, every bit is competition to Visa, MasterCard kind of digital payments, or the ACH, the automated clearinghouse, or the SWIFT system of the banks. It's actually competition to that. It's in competition to the remittance system that is based on the old telegraph wire approach. It's in competition to centralized authority at a bunch of different levels. It also represents a major shift in computer coding paradigms from the previous code for the individual device to now code for a network. And it's representing a level of collaboration that humans have never had before. It is also true that the understanding we have of gold and silver relative to the quantities and the potential to use as a currency is erroneous. That I actually side with Bix in saying that there's more gold than people understand, and even if it were fairly allocated, there's still yet not enough gold to be effective as a currency in the modern age unless you are attempting to some way figure out a digital transmission form for that gold, which gets you back to the issue of trust. Do you trust the people that say they're holding it for you? And since the system is crashing, and since we've been lied to for so long in the Western republics by the dishonest media, we now find ourselves in a situation where no one wants to trust anything. We can't afford to, because we've been lied to too frequently. And so a trustless system, or rather the ability to trust the system over the individuals, is really the next wave for our economic order, for the way that we're going to actually do business. And it was interesting that the way that the cryptocurrencies came along, that the Satoshi Nakamoto white paper for Bitcoin figured out how to do away with the double spending issue, and then it's been growing ever since. And it will continue to grow, in my opinion, until it's large enough to suck out all the wealth that's been stored in the old system. And it's really a system of computers all working together to arrive at a consensus. Rather, software running on individual computers, the miners, is working to arrive at a consensus as to what is in our distributed digital ledger. And so in that sense, it's much safer than centralized storage of your digital dollars in a bank or any other scheme we've come up with in the past 6,000 or 8,000 years. We know from history that gold and silver as money have failed repeatedly. It's still money, but as a currency system, it doesn't work much longer in any event than historically we find paper currencies working. And paper currencies had an advantage of not being heavy, more easy to hide and keep away from bandits, and easier to transmit, etc. And those are some of the aspects we need in our new world. So, in my opinion, the cryptocurrencies came along at just the right time, and now it's a question of growing the software that is cryptocurrencies into something robust and capable of serving humanity as a whole.
Absolutely articulate. I've heard a lot of people argue cryptocurrencies to me, but Bix and yourself, Clif, I got to say, absolutely articulate.
Well, thanks much.
I learned from you, Jim.
Well, yeah, but you know, Jimmy might be a tad of an anachronism because I'm kind of very old-fashioned. But there's no question that gold never functioned itself as a currency. The need for currency was real, and it made currency real. Okay, and that the central banks have been looking for something new to use as a reserve currency, but it's not out there. I mean, what are you going to do? Make an average of all currencies, and that's an average of everything going down, and that's not going to serve as a reserve currency. So, I've always thought, and you know that's a fact, that the central banks will have a crypto that only they can trade, and and when you explain we've been lied to too much, and the effect it has, that will become more obvious once the party is over. You make more sense of cryptos, gentlemen, than I've heard up to this period of time in the fewest possible words. I think the reason people don't understand is because if you read this stuff, it's so complex, okay, that, there's a truism. If you're reading and you go over a word you don't understand, you must stop reading, and you got to look up the word. Why? Because from that point forward, you don't retain anything. Okay, that's one of Hubbard's discoveries, and even though his final product got a bad reputation, the guy was no dope. And so anytime I'm reading anything and I see a word I just don't understand, I stop reading. I don't need a dictionary. They don't exist anymore. Flip on the computer and find out what that word means. And it's amazing what it does to your intellect. It's almost like a cold shower after a nice hot sauna. It would wake you up. So, one thing that I got to say is that I want to congratulate both of you, not only for having seen this early, but really to have seen the why in it, okay? What you said to me now makes a great deal of good sense. And the only argument that's left is, what is the system worth? What is paper currency worth? And eventually, what is gold and silver worth? And, you're very close to the free gold school. In fact, you are preaching free gold. The only problem with free gold is, like, when people discover things that are real in monetary, they become monetary schools. And they're Austrian, and therefore you have the Austrian school. And the free gold school is shockingly right, but it turned into a religion that loves this and hates that. But their basic tenet is you must have a currency, and currencies will always exist for the purpose of exchange. And something else will exist for the purpose of maintaining value long term. So I can see your argument, and I can see where Bitcoin, where the lack of government intervention in Bitcoin is because I think they want to see how it happens. They want you to develop the programs, etc. But these guys are not dopes. They may be snowflakes, but they're not dopes, and they know you've hit on something. So the entire discussion that I see it is, how did the market develop? Did a market develop? At what price is the development compensated? At what degree of duration does it have before that price is found? What's its application if, in fact, really the governments and those people who are running us want to steal it? Just points of discussion. But I'll tell you that up to now, I've looked at Bitcoin as being a phenomena of the strange environments we live in. I don't want to be insulting and say tulips or something like that, but let's not do that because now I know crypto isn't. But we've got to get we all need to know. Why couldn't it be 100,000 tomorrow? The answer is it could be. So,
boy, I sure hope
think
not.
No, but it could be. Okay, and we'll discuss why as we go through this. So I want to say, number one, I got no argument with you. Okay. 2, the value has to be determined. 3, it has a future. 4, its future is the currency that the school of free gold is looking for, but has yet to define. And I really think that when you take into consideration the basic understanding of the school of free gold, the only thing they didn't add to that was free gold and cryptocurrency. They said currency, but they constantly say all currencies are going in the pooper. So it's very hard to understand why anybody could look at currency as having any capacity whatsoever to maintain its value against what a crash and a credit crash could possibly create. So I want to thank you for your opening education. My argument will be, if there is any, in understanding valuation, knowing when its future has been discounted, to the point where, like everything else, at $3 it was a screaming undervaluation, and at $1 million it might be a screaming overvaluation.
Maybe.
Okay, I'm just throwing numbers out. These are not beliefs; it's just numbers.
I'll pass this over to David in a second, but I want to say that, Clif, you mentioned that gold and silver have failed as monetary assets or monetary policy, and I know I've seen an interview where Bix, you had mentioned they can't go to a silver standard because there's not enough silver.
So what they said is they failed as a currency. Okay.
But the reason for the failure was man, not the metal itself.
Well, what I'm hearing, Bill.
Well, no, actually, let's also contribute in there. Part of the issue is the fact that it's a metal, and so consequently, you needed to store it in a big building, and sooner or later, it was stolen from you, no matter what state you happen to be in. And so
right,
China
blockchain would prevent.
Correct.
And we agree with that. To the second point, you're absolutely right, Bix. There's not enough silver at this price. But if you had silver valued at $10,000 an ounce, there'd probably be enough silver around.
But I think the reality of what Jim was saying, and what is the value, we haven't known the value of gold and silver at least since they invented the computer trading model. I mean, if people don't understand that gold and silver are under control by now, I think most do. And I would love to know the true fair market value of gold and silver and Bitcoin and all the cryptocurrencies in today's state of creating electronic assets, so to speak, in the derivative market, in the central banks, you name it, everything has turned into a debt-based liability asset.
Well, one thing that I've been good at in my life is tops, okay, and I hope on all those points, if there's any legacy that I leave, it might be calling tops.
I agree, and you have called them. My point would be that because I've done a lot of research into the history of computer trading and computers in general, and where our electronic monetary system came from, I know that the Fed has been deeply involved in the electronic money since day one.
Oh, absolutely.
Big time, major focus. Okay?
I mean, that's what RUTA stands for. Root A is a computer programming term. It's the basis of our financial system. So
I didn't know. I thought what you cleaned out was sewers. I thought it was Roto-Rooter.
You'd have a lot more money.
I never knew. I never knew where that name came from. Ruta.
Yeah, it comes from the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston. It's a comic book they put out.
Certainly appropriate in the present situation.
But Bix, when the markets come apart, do you not agree that as derivatives fail and are peeled back, become worthless, assets, the underlying assets are going to find or approach their real values?
Now, go easy, because this is a man who sits upon a gold mine here, okay? So we don't want to depress him.
I do in a sense, but knowing that the derivative market is the multi-trillion-dollar problem, and it is a weapon of mass financial destruction, I get to a point is thinking, okay, if the derivative market blows, everything blows. I mean, literally everything. Even banks not involved with the derivative market will go sideways because their customers will lose when the big banks go down. That is the reason the manipulation has been allowed to last for so long. They have to keep this system under control, and they had no way out. Even going back to 1913, they really did have no way out. Once they started the Fed, once they got us off the gold standard or semi-off the gold standard in 33 and then got us off the gold standard in 71, the problem was always, where do we go from here? And that's the big
problem
thing now.
Today.
Yeah.
That's today's major problem. Where do we go from here?
Yeah, and that's exactly why.
Believe me, we might not like them, okay? And they might be the most evil characters. That, who knows? Maybe the movie The Office, where Satan was the head of the legal firm, might be right. But where we go from here is the primary question. We've got a terrific price on Bitcoin. We've got modestly improved prices on silver and gold. And we've got prices on equities that have never been seen before in the history of trading. And currencies are sort of yawning.
But remember, when the banks go, when the derivative bubble goes, nothing will be priced in U.S. dollars because there will be no U.S. dollars. The fractional reserve system is guaranteed that the large banks will go down if they have any big hits on the derivative side. And those banks go down, it's that too big to fail issue. Once these big banks, one of them fails,
the only disagreement I'd make would be on the dollar. I believe all currencies will still be there. The question is, what will they be worth? I mean, maybe you buy chewing gum for $1 trillion.
Right.
But the currency will be there. The currency will be functioning because you've got to go buy something from the local hardware store.
Right. But they'll have to restart the currency system because
so there has to
if the banks go down, there's no money.
Well, the banks, these guys go down, but somehow, the Rothschilds are really hard to get rid of unless you put them in airplanes.
Well, helicopter. I think it was the helicopter.
No, it was a helicopter. Right. Hey, by the way, did you ever hear of a helicopter running into an airplane? I'm a helicopter pilot. I could run into a lot of things. In fact, that's why I stopped flying. But I never heard of it. It's very hard to run a helicopter into an airplane. You got to really have the intention.
Cliff, did you have something to add?
Well, I was just going to say that maybe we needed to look at it a couple of different ways here, okay, get a different perspective on things. Because I think Jim is correct. I think that he's very good at picking tops. But I think that what we need to do is to look at a scenario that would give us a different perspective so that we might be able to judge how the market is actually forming and where it is in a historical sense. Because
I'm going to say now you're right. The cryptocurrency is here to stay. Okay.
Right. Well, let's look at it this way too. The derivatives, as Bix is talking about, if they were to go bluey and if the banks were to crumble down to nothing, would cause devastation throughout the social order. So let's assume for a minute that the powers that be are not going to let that happen. Let's side with Catherine Fitz with the idea of a slow burn in a sense of at least controlled retreat. And that maybe the powers that be are aware that cryptocurrencies are beyond their ability to control, but nonetheless, they're forced to use them because nobody's going to accept the SDR or any form of...
The SDR is a joke.
Exactly, of any form of a joke currency again.
It's a very dark joke.
Yes, but let's assume then that all of that wealth, all that stolen extra calories produced on the backs of all these people for the last 70, 80 years is going to try and find its way into cryptocurrencies. The people that are going to be doing that are going to be doing everything they can along the way to keep the system going long enough at least for that to occur. If indeed they are doing that, then we could see a situation where we're all correct. The dollar doesn't go away, and I can actually even make a case that the dollar is going to get a lot stronger, at least in the short term. But that what actually happens is that the evolving system starts taking over. So in other words, right now I could obtain a plastic card that would allow me to spend cryptos in dollar-denominated amounts within the U.S. as though I was using a Visa card. I could do the same thing outside of the U.S. and get it in a euro denomination, or nowadays even in
or even gold denomination.
Correct.
You're actually starting a system. I think Ben Davies is starting Glint, which does the same thing with gold.
Well,
right, and so we're going to have multiple different kinds of systems, all emerging at the same time, that have to suck out all of those quadrillions of nominal or notional dollars into these new forms, and that's where I think we are. Correct.
Drug money is all $100 bills.
Right. Not going to do any good anymore. Right.
No, they're all. You just take a look at El Chapo's treasure rooms. Okay, yeah, there's a little gold in the corner, not much, silver in the other corner, but the piles of $100 bills are amazing.
I know.
Okay, you better be no smoking in treasure rooms.
Right.
Well,
but
you know
the
what
point
I think
being that historically we're at a juncture.
Yeah, we are.
It's like a 1789, and you're going to say, okay, here we are, France is going into turmoil. What's it going to be like, and how long is it going to take? I actually don't think the banks are going to crumble per se. I think that we're in an economic bubble, a debt-based bubble, but I think it's coming unglued and has been very rapidly for the last year, and that the valuations we're seeing are hyperinflation.
How will the
Well, you got hyperinflation right in front of your eyes, because if Bitcoin is scratching 10,000, it's telling you something.
Correct.
Okay.
And if gold and silver were freely traded, you'd see it there too.
Well,
but how will the derivatives be handled?
I think that, part of this I want to get in, and I sure want to hear David, and I want to shut up, but I would like to get into the construction of the markets before we finish this, as part of the valuation question, rather than the existence question. Okay. I think all these things will exist. Gold will exist, currencies will exist, and a cryptocurrency will exist, and the Fed will try and steal it. But the question is, what are the values that are going to be attached to all of these items? Currencies, metals, cryptos, crypto reserve. And that's what I think we're looking at. And you're so right. The world has changed beyond, just the idea of the whoopee airplane that our president flew in 19 times when Clinton was there, okay? I mean, things have changed. It makes Caligula look like an apostle.
Yeah, like he wasn't trying.
And this is all coming out. This is all coming out at the right time.
It's beyond belief. And, have you noticed that pedophiles started at an age of 17 and 18? Now they got it down to 14. Hang on, you're going to find out the real age.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's going to shock you, and it's going to shock me. I mean, I plead with my children: don't let your kids out of your sight, and leashes are not a bad idea. My sister used to had two. She had a leash on them. Okay, not a bad idea.
I've seen that. Yeah.
Hold on.
When you got two, they go in two directions. They never go in the same direction. That would be too easy. They're not born for that purpose. They're born to take you, to destroy your mind. So at some point, let's talk about the markets, how the character of markets have affected these various items, and how markets may go in the future and have significant impact on the valuation part.
How are derivatives going to be handled? We can't have a slow burn with the amount of derivatives outstanding. I completely disagree with that.
Well, derivatives,
Jim,
I don't think they will be handled.
Jim, let them answer.
Okay.
Well, sure. I actually think that people that are on that are caught in the middle, okay, the Norwegian town that has got a derivative that is guaranteeing, they think, a certain level of income or production, I think those people that are actual derivative victims at that level will be the ones that will basically unwind the system by converting over. That is to say, by taking some of those assets and buying into cryptocurrencies as it's going along and making a net benefit on the shift of all of this money into cryptocurrencies. Because bear in mind, it's not just derivatives, but it's actually all of the real cash, all of the real wages that people are earning. A lot of these guys are now starting to shift into cryptocurrencies. And here's the thing about this. Cryptocurrencies are at their core software. And so there's a lot of people that are thinking it can be hacked and cracked and all of this. But basically the blockchains are quite immutable and can't be hacked but they can be changed as we agree that there's a bug. We can fix it and make them stronger. So, but there's also something about software. It goes through an organization at a known speed with known milestones along the way, and at a predictable rate of adoption within the size of the totality of the universe that is being looked at. And so we can make some predictions as to how fast people will move over into cryptos. And right now, even with this advanced valuation of scratching at the bottom of 10,000 for Bitcoin, we're still only looking at 300,000 people that are actually Bitcoin owners, and maybe 2 to 3 million people that are involved in cryptocurrencies as a whole. But we're getting at a point where we're going to cross a threshold, and those people will be enough to influence more than twice their number to join them in a short period of time. And if we just look at the statistics on wallet downloads, because you can get a free cryptocurrency wallet and just download it to your PC. And if you just look at the statistics on these over the last couple of years, you see that for a while we were simply doubling every year. And then we started to really accelerate on the number of aggregated cryptocurrency wallets being downloaded. And it's now starting to really reach into exponential. But this exponential is relative only to the people that are there already, not to the size of even the population of the United States. So if we imagine that we've got to get all of our population over into the cryptos, and that there will be incentives for them to do so, I think the incentive system will also hit the guys that are in the derivative bind. And I think that we're seeing some of the language now about such discussions occurring in town councils and other areas where we get this stuff out on the internet, and people are actually considering, oh, well, we've got this annuity coming in as a town or a corporation or a canton or a province or whatever. How about if we buy some Bitcoin with it? And so radical concepts are being broached at a minor level of officialdom, and I think it's signaling the way that the organic nature of this will cause the derivatives to shift over. So in that sense, I don't see a crash and a dip into a Mad Max world. I see that the software is going to eat money the way that software ate air traffic control, or any of these other things, or communications. And it's starts off gradual, accelerates, reaches the innovators, goes into early adopters, reaches into mainstream, and at that point we all look back and say, how could it have been otherwise? But we're a long way from there now, and that's where the issue of the market comes in, and the fair valuation, because I think Bix is correct. If we had to do a fair valuation right now, $1 million is too little for a Bitcoin.
Cliff, there's over a quadrillion. Go ahead, David.
Well, my question would be you're talking about, okay, there's X amount of people in Bitcoin at this particular minute, and Bitcoin, just keep it simple, is trading at $8,500. 65% of the United States population doesn't have $500 to rub together in an emergency. So are you telling me 65% of the population will never own a Bitcoin?
No.
Well, it's divisible into I think it's 100 millionth of a decimal. I mean, it's divisible such that you don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. You can buy a penny's worth of Bitcoin if you want.
Less than a penny. Yeah.
Yeah, way less than a penny. One Satoshi is one. It's 8 decimal points, and that can be changed also. So, yeah, people talk in Bitcoin, but it is a lot more divisible than gold or silver or anything really.
And let's look at reality here too. I've got man on the street kind of stuff here, in the sense that I've got working relatives in the food service business that are putting their money into Ether and some of these other coins, which were a little bit cheaper, and trying to buy a whole ETH, so to speak, right? And so here's a guy, he's making probably just barely over minimum wage, working at a fast food restaurant, and he's mid-20s, and so he's already in the process of converting his disposable income not into